Hello and a warm welcome to News Across Nigeria. I'm Olumide Macaulay. On today's edition, the Supreme Court dismisses Senate President Saraki's appeal. A school infrastructure so bad that snakes bite students during classes. And the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency arrests drug suspects in Kaduna. Thank you for joining us. The Supreme Court has dismissed an appeal by the Senate President, Dr. Bukola Saraki, challenging the validity of his trial on charges of assets declaration preferred against him at the Code of Conduct Tribunal. In the lead judgment taken by Justice Walter Samuel, the court held that the Code of Conduct Tribunal was properly constituted to exercise jurisdiction over Dr. Saraki's trial, contrary to the Senate President's contention. The Apex Court also held that the tribunal was, by the provisions of its enabling laws and the Constitution, conferred with jurisdiction and thus could validly issue bench warrant. According to the Supreme Court, the Administration of Criminal Justice Act 2015 was applicable to the proceedings of the tribunal.
There's no doubt the judgment has interpreted so many parts of the Constitution, and controversy surrounding some of the provisions of the Constitution by this judgment have been laid to rest. And there's no doubt about that. This is a final court of our land. Whatever this court says is the final.
Is your client ready to submit himself for trial?
Well, it's a law-abiding personality.
The Supreme Court has demonstrated today that the law is the king and not persons. So it shows that the Supreme Courts are dependable, reliable, and can be trusted. Because for a decision to come like this against the number 3 man in the country, it shows that Nigeria should keep on trusting and believing in our judiciary. So the law is demonstrated to be the king and not persons. Everyone no one is above the law, and everyone must obey the law. That is the message today. For the judgment to them, and for them to give us further date. Yes.
And there's a reaction from the Senate President, Dr. Bukola Saraki, to that verdict by the Supreme Court. The Senate President has expressed his disappointment at the ruling. In a statement by his spokesman, Yusuf Olanionu, the Senate President believes he'll have his day in court to prove his innocence of the charges preferred against him during the trial proper. This, according to him, is because the substantial matter is not before the Supreme Court, since the Apex Court was only invited to rule on some preliminary issues. Dr. Bukola Saraki expressed confidence that at the end of the day, truth will prevail and justice will be served. Another Supreme Court ruling this week. Abia State Governor Okezie Ikpeazu has thanked supporters for their commitment, loyalty, promising to ensure rapid development in the state for the benefit of all Abians. He made the pledge at a victory service in Umuahia shortly after he arrived from Abuja, where the Supreme Court affirmed his victory at the polls. Governor Ikpeazu gave an assurance that Abia State will always come first in everything he does.
This victory is to you people, Abia. This is one election that has seen 2 seasons, the rainy season and the dry season. Therefore, you have suffered through the 2 major seasons in Nigeria for us to achieve victory. May it not be in vain in Jesus' name. We shall rededicate ourselves before God to make a pledge that will continue to serve you with commitment to the best of our ability. Our prayers to God will continue so that He will provide good health and the resources we need to develop Abia.
Abia State Governor Okezie Ikpeazu. A new speaker has been elected by the Taraba State House of Assembly following the sacking of the former speaker, Abel Peter Dia, by the Court of Appeal. Mark Hussaini emerged the new speaker as he unanimously was elected by members. The House has been on recess since the 23rd of December 2015 and reconvened under an emergency meeting. Presiding over the sitting, Deputy Speaker Mohammed Danladi Guampo beckoned on the members for nominations, which led to the nomination of Hussaini, and he was unanimously elected. Now, to Rivers State, it appears controversy is brewing over the March 19 new date announced by the Independent National Electoral Commission for the conduct of the National and State Assembly elections, billed to be conducted in the state. While some lawyers say INEC reserves the right to decide the appropriate time to conduct the polls, the Attorney General of Rivers State, Ima Aguma, says that the Commission must follow the rule of law by not exceeding the cutoff date for all elections to be conducted for Rivers State in line with 60 and 90-day orders given by the court. Our correspondent Emmanuel Erei reports.
At a recent meeting of INEC officials and political leaders in Port Harcourt, the Rivers State capital, when February 6 was first canvassed as the date for the State and National Assembly rerun election, some political parties disagreed, claiming that they needed more time to prepare for the polls.
I want to put it to you that IPAC will not appreciate or accept that short notice for this election.
And now, the March 19 new date, as announced by the electoral body, is raising legal questions over whether INEC is within its rights to extend the time. Some lawyers believe that the time limit is at the discretion of the Commission.
Declaration by the court to hold these elections or conduct them on that particular date within 60 days is really actually not binding on INEC in the sense that it wasn't the real issue before the court, because what you truly obey, what you call a decision of the court is the real decision, the ratio decidendi, as we call it, the real decision, which is the decision tied or founded on the issue before the court.
It's INEC that will be able to determine whether the 60 days has expired or whether the time they fixed for the election is within the 60 days, because they know when they were served.
For the State Attorney General, there is no provision in the Electoral Act that allows INEC to exercise the discretion of time.
It is no excuse that INEC is not ready for the election, because the provisions of the law are clear, and INEC ought to anticipate that one of the directives that could come from a tribunal or the appellate tribunal is that elections should be conducted.
In the light of various litigations that entangled the last general elections, some say INEC would do well to ensure that the upcoming legislative rerun elections in the state is not just credible, free and fair, but also free of any legal web that may jeopardize the entire process. Emmanuel Erei, Channels Television News.
You're watching news across Nigeria. Coming up, school infrastructure, a particular one in Edo State, so bad that snakes have been heard of as having bitten students during classes. Stay with us.